We are Infinity X, coming to you live each and every single Tuesday, where we give a stage and microphone to human excellence in the pursuit of giving world-class education from megapreneurs. And tonight is absolutely no different. Tonight, we have the co-founder of the Fat Shack and the expert, or an expert, I should say. I'm not going to say the expert yet, but he's growing in that space. If you want to learn about franchising and how to effectively build it out and model it, you have got to learn more about none other than Tom Armenti. Tom, how you doing this evening, brother?
I'm good, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm great. Thanks for popping on, folks. We Are Infinity X is live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Replay, weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the We Are Infinity X app. So, Tom, what's going on this evening, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Just finishing up a day grinding and joining you a couple minutes late. Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right. That typically means that you're busy, which is a good.
Always.
What
always.
are you up to? What are you up to in the world right now, brother?
Just a whole bunch of back end stuff right now. We just had a owners conference a couple weeks ago out here in Colorado. So we had all of our franchisees out here, just pushing a lot of stuff over with them, continuing to follow up, just continue to push the Fat Shack brand forward.
Tom, and look, you need a turbo jet to be able to keep up with all the things that you're up to in the world. It's unbelievable. Your trajectory is just so massive, Tom. And we're going to go really, really deep because I think that people are looking more heavily now at franchises and residualized incomes and business ownership, probably than in the almost 24 years that I've been in financial planning. I see it come up day in and day out. And there are so many people that are not prepared to go into that space. So many people that have no clue what it is to launch a franchise, right? And I want to go really, really deep with you on that because we've had multiple conversations, and to get to know you on a personal basis as well as business basis has been just a real treat. But the story of human excellence is one that we always lead off with on Infinity X, because you didn't get to where you are without, making mistakes, good, bad, all of the above. And I just love to hear the journey of the entrepreneur. So, Tom, where are you from originally?
Yeah, so I'm from Ramsey, New Jersey, originally, North Jersey.
Okay, and that's where I'm very familiar with Ramsey. But really, really nice,
Yeah.
really, really nice area. And you went to Ramsey High School?
Yep, went to Ramsey High, and then for college, I went down to the College of New Jersey, outside of Trenton.
Got it. What was that like?
It was fun. I mean, TC&J, for those of you in New Jersey, probably heard of it. Everyone else in the country probably has no idea what TC&J means. It's a little bit of a smaller school, 4,000-5,000 kids. But, it was perfect. It was an in-state school, had some scholarships, was able to get in and, talking about financial future, not really leave with any student debt, which was a big thing for me. So, it was a big reason I chose that school.
Amazing. Amazing. And what did you study?
That's kind of the beginning of my story as I was a business major. But as you get to know me, I'm not exactly the organized type. I'm kind of a grind it out, fly by the seat of your pants, take risks. So I was actually open options business until my senior year, when I was forced to declare marketing because I had taken too many marketing classes, because I was doing my own schedule, wasn't really meeting with advisors. So I kind of had to choose marketing to make sure I could graduate in the 4 years.
Yeah. And now it's funny how on the back end, that's probably one of the things that you do best, obviously. So you're forced to something, you're forced into your own excellence, essentially, right?
Exactly.
And by the way, if you have a question for Tom at any point during the conversation, please feel free to put it into chat. We will get to it as we can. So the College of New Jersey, right? And did you have the entrepreneurial spirit at that point, or were you approaching it from, when I graduate, I'm just going to go get a 9-to-5 and just that's what it's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think always in the back of your head, you think you have to probably do the 9-to-5 job. But I will say I started at about 15 or 16 years old playing online poker. So that was kind of the start of that entrepreneurial, back then, I wasn't supposed to be playing because I was only, 15 or 16 years old. So, sorry.
So you get a pass, bro.
Yeah. Sorry to my brother who was 18, who I used his name to, to register for the account, all that stuff. Yeah, my parents weren't too pleased when they found out about that. But you start playing for $1, $5, and then all of our friends were playing. We were big fans of the movie Rounders back in the day, which if you haven't seen it, go check out Rounders. So we thought I was going to be a professional poker player maybe, and kept playing that through college. So the first few years of college, I actually just played online poker in the background. I drive up to Turning Stone Casino, which is 18 and up to gamble, play some poker tournaments up there. And that was just kind of the beginning of managing my money, managing a bankroll. You play this tournament, how much do you have left? How much can you win? Weighing the risk and reward. So that was kind of the first step into the entrepreneurial side there.
Got it. I love that. And did you find while you're in school and while you're doing all of this, did you find that you were managing, if you could turn back the clock, right? And speak to the young Tom, was young Tom managing his money well? Was young Tom managing his money, we'll call it suboptimally? What did that look like?
Well, young Tom was also in a fraternity in TC&J's, Phi Kappa Psi. And young Tom was the social chair of Phi Kappa Psi. So, I may or may not have dropped $500 to $1,000 on a foam machine so we could fill the basement with foam and have foam parties. I may or may not have thrown a bunch of parties and bought all the alcohol for them. But even then, still, it was, all right, if I get this foam machine, I can then probably sell a ticket for, $10 instead of $5, or we can get more people to come to the party. So still have a little bit of that in the background. But I would say, at that point, my goal was have my own money, have some fun with it, but, continue to manage it and hopefully have it grow through poker and, other means.
Got it. And then post-graduation, what happened next, Tom?
So post-graduation was, kind of that point where I knew that I wanted to start the Fat Shack. Backtracking just a little bit, junior year of college, it was me and a couple buddies from Ramsey, my hometown friends, and we were sitting around trying to figure out, hey, what are we going to do for jobs this summer? Because, for those of you that are business majors, junior year summer is kind of when you're supposed to get that internship. You're supposed to go work for that company, have that experience, to show when you graduate so you can get a real job. We sat around my buddy's house trying to figure out, what are we going to do? We don't want to get real jobs. So, after a few stupid ideas, we came up with the idea of a late night restaurant. Our town didn't have a bunch of late night food. And one of my best friends, his dad owned a local bagel shop, deli in town. So we kind of just had the idea of, hey, maybe we can run nights. So, we approached his father. He allowed us to operate out of there Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. We did, a bunch of deli sandwiches and things, but we also added fat sandwiches, which is, again, for people in Jersey, it's a staple. They were at Rutgers, the grease trucks, at every diner you could find a fat sandwich, fried food loaded on a roll. So we added a few of those to the menu for that late night punch at 2 a.m. after somebody's been at the bar.
Sure, of course. And let me ask you, and what type of analytics went into the thought process of launching that? I mean, you mentioned that was popular at Rutgers, right? But like when you did you do market surveys, Tom? Did you do any of those steps that you needed to take?
I mean, at that point, we were the market. We were 20 years old, looking for late night food, and our friends were the market too, or we knew, it was either drive to McDonald's, and we knew that people probably shouldn't be driving at that hour, from what we had seen.
Sure.
And and just, we knew that food killed it at night, obviously, from what we had seen at other places. So, that was kind of the only market research we did. The cool part was, we worked out this deal with his father. So it was very low risk because even if we came in, what's going to happen? We lost a little bit of money. We built the menu on Microsoft Word ourselves, sitting there with a 1-point font, getting the spacing just right. And, then we just went around and handed out all the menus to every high school in the area and spread the word. And, I joke around that we were like the original ghost kitchen because, people didn't even know where we were. We were just doing delivery at night. So
incredible. But what happened next after
So me and my friends ended up running that business together for about a year and a half. And I knew that there was a market for it at the College of New Jersey. So, me and my one buddy whose dad owned the shop kind of just said, hey, you know what? I'll let you keep this business that we started. I'm going to break off and do my own thing. That business, by the way, for anyone in New Jersey, it's called CARS, CARS. And there's still a shop in Ramsey. Yeah, there's still one at Montclair State that my buddy opened up. So, that's still there to this day if people want to go check it out. But, that's when I came up with the different brand Fat Shack. And the idea was to bring that down to, my college where I graduated from, because same exact scenario, I knew that there was really no late night food. At our college, we had, there was one guy that drove around in a minivan with $5 pizzas. I think he used to work at Domino's, and he started his own thing after, and it was just, kind of that cardboard $5 pizza. And then there was a wing place it was a 50-50 chance. If you called up, they might show up, they might not show up, and people were drinking, they would keep your money, they wouldn't care, there was no service to it whatsoever. So I knew there was a market for it, and it was totally untapped at that point.
And what type of profit margins gave you the idea, like, aha, wait a second, I'm really onto something? Like, how profitable was it when you first launched?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the cool part back when I was doing it with my friends is, we saw it was all fried food, on rolls. At that point, nowadays, totally different on the costing structure. But back then, the fried food was pretty inexpensive. So, we were able to, at that time, college kids put a few grand in our pocket, just working the weekends. That's kind of where I saw, oh, yeah, this is definitely something big, that I could elaborate on. And, that was the whole idea is take it down to that market where now there's 4,000 or 5,000 college kids that are untapped. So, I really had no idea what the potential was at that point. I just knew, come in, do the food right, focus on customer service, and, I'll figure that money side out a little bit later. But luckily, we opened first night and did $2,300 in sales, at TC&J, and just, blew it out of the park. No one even knew where we were. Again, all paper menus again, handed them out in the dorms. And yeah, I mean, my problem was I had a bunch of fraternity brothers working for me that had no idea what they were doing and training them on the fly. I thought to myself, what the heck have I done? I am going to be in this kitchen, for the rest of my life, making sandwiches.
Now, did you know that, was your model going to be delivery? Was it going to be foot traffic? Was it going to be a combination of the both? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, originally the plan was all delivery. Originally the plan was, I think my entity name was Fat Shack Late Night Delivery LLC. So it truly was, that late night delivery, because we weren't right next to campus by any means. Backtracking just a little bit, to get into the store at TC&J, I actually was able to find, similar to what I did up north with my buddy, I was able to find another bagel shop locally who, allowed me to come in and share the space with them. Because
Smart.
after I graduated, I started looking for spaces, talking to contractors. You're talking 150, 200K just to build it out, even before the restaurant equipment. So after about 3 months of being pretty demoralized, still going to college parties, feeling like, oh man, I'm that graduated guy that's still showing up at the party. I was like, I got to figure something out. So I was able to, find someone locally, and we struck a deal so I could work, out of his bagel shop. So it was truly just late night, 6 p.m. until 3, 4 in the morning, running crazy sandwiches to the drunk kids at the college.
But what happened next, right? Because obviously you started to scale, right? Did you recognize that you were going to have to staff on a more full-time basis? Like what transpired? Like, tell me about the snowball.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the crazy part about starting the business the way that I did, in that little bagel shop was we didn't have enough space. It was 900 square feet. So I used to store a bunch of the product in my garage. I have box freezers. So I get my food delivered to the garage, unload all the stuff in there. Then the day of, or, the night of, I'd load up the car, bring enough food over for the day, and run that night. So, I was quickly able to build some staff up in there, but realized that operation, was a little bit unsustainable to, leave that in somebody else's hands, having to build that out. So, one, we started renovating the bagel shop to make it a little bit bigger so we could, fit some more of our stuff in there. And then two, I have family out in Colorado, which is, where I'm sitting right now, Loveland, Colorado. And they convinced me to come check out Fort Collins, which, for those who don't know, Colorado State University is in Fort Collins. That's about 30,000 kids. So you go from 4,000, 5,000 to 30,000 plus, booming late night town. So that was kind of my first jump into my first full store. Was in 2011 when I, moved out to Colorado and opened the store in Fort Collins.
Incredible. Folks, we are Infinity X, stage and microphone with human excellence. This is Tom Armenti, the founder, CEO of the Fat Shack franchise. Buckle your seatbelts, because what happened next, folks, and the trajectory and development and growth of this franchise is unbelievable. right? So if you have a question for Tom, by all means, please put it in the chat. Replay weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube. And hey, Parker, can you do me a favor? Just make sure everybody else is muted other than Sean or Tom, if they're not. So I just want to make sure we didn't have any disturbance in the sound quality there, Tom.
Yeah, no sweat.
But all right, so you get out to Colorado State, right? You know, you're now a very, very small fish in a much, much bigger pond, right? What happens next?
Yeah, so I mean, even just again getting the store open in Colorado, you know, again I was looking for spaces, super expensive to build them out. I was able to find an existing restaurant that was going out of business. So I was able to buy, you know, them out of their lease for a cheap amount, and you know, take over the infrastructure, hood, all that kind of stuff in place. So I was able to do it for, you know, about 75,000 at that point to build out my first full restaurant. So you know, that's kind of the theme you'll see throughout, is keeping it scrappy. You know, it's a big thing for us getting going.
Where did the funding come from, Tom?
So at that point, I had some of the money from, you know, the New Jersey shop, and my father actually had a line of credit on his house. You know, so it wasn't like rolling in money. It's, you know, my dad willing to put up their house as collateral to get me the rest of that funding, you know, to open that store. So obviously, it takes someone to believe in you.
Heck yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's incredible. So cash, sweat equity, and a little bit of home equity, essentially, is what got it off the ground.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, at that point, you know, I'm in Colorado, and again, these fat sandwiches, these crazy, you know, French fries, chicken fingers, all this stuff on a sandwich. People in Jersey knew what it was. People in Colorado, a lot of them had never even seen anything like this before. So it was kind of jumping into a risky area. But for me, you know, it always just fell back to grinding it out, doing the right thing by the customer, doing the right thing by the quality of the food. And, you know, I knew it would make sense eventually. So, you know, right away when I opened, it was the first time I was going to open for lunch. And I had my own space. I'm doing the projections. Oh man, lunch business, you know, cool. We're doing this much an hour at night. We'll do that during the lunch. You know, we're going to start doing all these huge numbers. I'm going to kill it. And then we open, and lunch is just flat as can be. You know, there's no sales during lunch. You know, I've got multiple counter people hired, you know, all this stuff. And I quickly realized, all right, we got to trim the numbers. You know, I got to start, you know, getting my food costs together. So that first year was truly me sleeping in the store a lot of nights. You know, I had an air mattress I'd blow up behind the counter. You know, I'd work from 10 a.m. till 4 a.m. I'd go to sleep for about 4 or 5 hours. I'd wake up, I'd do it again. You know, so countless nights just kind of grinding it out, again, focusing on the quality, the customer service. But then I started counting, hey, how many jalapeno poppers come in a bag? You know, how many chicken fingers come in a bag? All right, we got to trim that down, you know, fix the food costs. All right, cut those counter people, get less people in the kitchen, you know, and after the first year of just basically scraping by and breaking even, then I figured it out, and I was able to pay that loan back to my dad, you know, throughout the next year, just knocked the whole thing out really quickly. And that's kind of when, you know, I started realizing, all right, we're getting this together, you know, I want to grow and I want to build this thing.
So, and grow you did, right? Because now you find, so you did market analysis, right? You did cost analysis. You quickly identified what was going to work and what was not going to work. And I think that that's really a big, big takeaway, folks, that you need to listen to. The subliminal message of that is that one of the big risks to a business is overexpansion, right? And and by overexpansion, I mean extension of the values of the value adds and the services that you offer when you're not prepared to do so. And that can come back to hurt you, right? That can come, as opposed to doubling down on what it is that you're really, really good at, right? And then allowing that ultimately to expand upon itself, which obviously it did, Tom, right? So what happened after the first store really started to cash flow and become net positive?
Yeah, so after Fort Collins was doing well, that's when my business partner and, you know, co-founder of the franchising company, Kevin Gabauer, came on board. He was selling commercial insurance back in New Jersey. You know, he did my insurance. He had kind of seen what was going on, and he was that missing piece, you know, because that's another piece, is just understanding what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Like I mentioned earlier, go get it, grind it out, you know, let's take a risk. But I didn't have that organizational piece behind me. You know, I had never done a business plan. I didn't have all of that stuff. Kevin, on the flip side, he was the most organized guy that I knew. You know, he was the guy back in college that I paid $20 to, and he'd finish the presentation, you know, and then I'd go in with him and BS it the next day. So, you know, I knew it was a good partnership. We were best friends too. So, you know, I knew we'd get along. So he quit his job. He moved out in 2013. And then we opened the Boulder, Colorado location, which, again, for those who don't know, CU Boulder is there, even bigger than Fort Collins, even bigger partiers than, you know, than up in Fort Collins. And we opened that store October 2013. blew all of our records out of the water opening week. Kevin and I, again, just grinding it out. We had an apartment and sleeping on air mattresses, down the street just while we're grinding. So it's just kind of the same story again, just grind, figure it out. And then, from there, that was really the test for franchising. We treated that as a franchise. We started charging ourselves royalties. We created the parent company. We treated Boulder like a franchise. We started charging ourselves royalties, and seeing that this model worked to grow.
What was the advantage of doing that, Tom, of charging yourselves royalties?
Yeah, so the advantage of that was that so we could truly test the model as a franchise model, because when you're a franchisor, the way you make your money is, franchise fees up front, but then also royalties ongoing as a percentage of people's sales. So we wanted to make sure that the business could sustain itself, while it was still paying royalties to that parent company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, go ahead, please.
No. Like I don't want to pause greatness, but I'm seeing that you were doing the analytics. Did you know that you were going to franchise, Tom, at that particular point? Or was it something where, hey, we're going to test the waters, and see if this is a model that is replicatable, and then we could maybe, seek to further develop it out?
Yeah, so at that point when we opened the Boulder store, we did know we were going to franchise. If you rewind about 6 months though, when Kevin first moved out, we actually had thought about licensing our brand only, because for those who don't know, the franchising side of it, to get paperwork done, to become a legal franchisor, it does cost a lot of money in legal fees, and we weren't sure we wanted to go that route. So we were trying to find a way where maybe we could partner with other restaurants that would, they open all during the day, and then we'd allow them to sell Fat Shack branded food at night. It wouldn't be us operating it; it would be them almost as a licensee, because then it would be cheaper and easier to get going. But we very quickly realized after, we had a bunch of meetings, we had one deal that was, we were talking pretty seriously with them in Boulder actually. But again, Kevin and I went down there and we saw what it was like on a Thursday night in Boulder with the kids, partying, Pearl Street. It was just out of control. And we just thought, all right, there's no way that we're going to be able to run, have somebody run a Fat Shack out of their little wing shop down the street. We've got to get our own full store. So at that point we said, we'll do it ourselves. We'll build up the money. We'll do the franchising eventually once we can really prove it. So at that point, we knew that we wanted to franchise. And I'll say in the back of my head, I always, reading books, looking into other people that have been successful. That's, been a big thing for me. McDonald's, the biggest franchise you can imagine, in the restaurant space. I was reading all the books about that. That was even back in Jersey when I was first getting going, reading books on Wendy's and reading books on all these big fast food empires. So that was a big inspiration for me too, knowing, hey, this is a great way to grow. We're gonna franchise this thing eventually. Just got to figure out how.
And so, what happened next after that? So you launch Boulder, it explodes, and then what happens?
So the big thing for us was trying to build people up from the inside as well. So I knew I wanted to franchise, but I also knew that we had really good people inside of the company that started off as delivery drivers, kitchen workers. I'm talking $5 an hour, $8 an hour, starting wages. That were my employees who we saw, a lot in. These guys were grinding. They knew what they were doing in the kitchen, and we believed in them. And, that was a big thing for me starting off at, 21, 22 years old, was not a lot of people believe in young entrepreneurs. If I didn't have my dad backing me, there's no bank that would have given me that money at that point because I didn't have collateral. Right. So our big thing in the beginning was, these people that are truly grinding it out and we believe in, let's figure out a way to get them that money. So our first franchisee was a kitchen guy, started off in Fort Collins in 2012 and ended up opening a store in Denver, DU, right near the college there in Denver. And we ended up loaning him some of the money. He had some family help him, and then we loaned him some of the money as well to get that space open. So he was our first franchise in 2015. And then we had another young guy who was a graduate from CU Boulder. He did his just a couple months later as the second franchise. And then we had another guy who started as a delivery driver in 2011 in the Fort Collins store, also opened the third franchise. So three of them kind of back to back to back in 2015.
Folks, I want to play in this space for a second because this is just absolutely genius. So when, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you're looking at a franchise, typically speaking, you walk in off the street and you want to open up a location. As long as you have the funding, as long as you have the financing, and I'm sure they do a little bit of background, probably quite a bit of background check on you, but they essentially just throw you the keys and say, hey, go get them, right? Or maybe they give you a little bit of tools, a little bit of modeling. You didn't do that. Right. You organically grew the key personnel that you saw had the grind, right? But also had the intangibles to be able to run a successful location, but you didn't throw them into the deep, you didn't throw them to the sharks, right? So how did you control or assist in the control of the growth rate? Because obviously you have, royalty, overriding royalty interest in those locations to do well, but how did you manage them from afar?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing for me is the people. To me, that's the number one thing. If you take care of the people, the money, the finance side will come. That's kind of how we grew. That's how we decided to build this thing. And like you hinted at there, a lot of franchisors are not like that. A lot of franchisors are all about, hey, let's go out and sell as many as we possibly can. Because again, that's that franchise fee, that's that royalty increase. Yep. But then down the line, when you have people that are failing, or you have people that are unhappy and they want to shut down, now you just went from 80 locations, back down to 20. And how does that look on your brand? Yeah, you got that short-term hit with those franchise fees, but long-term, that brand's going to fail. So for us, it was focusing on the people was really the key to long-term success. And I say that we're only, 12 years in, so I still got a long way to go for that, continued long-term success. But that's our goal, is to really focus on the people. And you kind of hinted at it with how do you control them from afar. The really awesome part about working with people from inside the brand is that they know the brand. They worked directly with me. Yes. They fully understood what the sandwiches are supposed to be made like, how Tom wants the restaurant to be run. So that really helped us as we were getting going, because out of those first 11 stores that we opened, I think all but 2 or 3 of them were with people, from the inside that started off as kitchen workers. So they knew what we were looking for.
Now, the story is about to get really, really good and really, really fun from a marketing perspective, brother, because you're a world-class marketer. But, one of the things obviously that you are aware of, many people are becoming much more aware of, is that when you're looking for liquidity and leverage, one of the strategies that we use is overfunding life insurance policies, right? Because it gives you liquidity, gives you leverage to be able to deploy back in your business, get multiple rates of return on your money, all of those incredible things. That was absent in your world at that particular point, right? And so when did you get to the point, Tom, that you realized that this thing could really, really, really scale? And, we're going to need a different level of funding and exposure to really take this to the levels that we think that we could take it to.
Yeah, I mean, it was at that point we had 11 locations. It was 2018. And, my partner, Kevin, and I had always joked around about, the Shark Tank. It was a big thing for us. We always watched the Shark Tank. If you're an entrepreneur or anyone that enjoys business, it doesn't get any better than that. Watching somebody in there sweating in front of 5, multimillionaires, billionaires, hearing their business, sense, hearing their answers to questions, seeing if they get a deal, working the numbers out. It's just, an hour long of basically, free business school, essentially, in my opinion. So we'd always loved watching Shark Tank, and we'd always joked around about, going on. It was at that point in 2018 when we had just opened the 11th location. We didn't really have, maybe we had 1 or 2 more locations on the horizon. But we kind of realized, what, if we had the right funding, the right exposure, we could definitely take this thing to the next level. So it was at that point that I heard about an open casting call in Denver for, none other than the Shark Tank. Wow. So I ended up going down there, fat check, shirt on, couple of menus in hand, and my wife was with me, and she always jokes about, she's asking me, do you want to practice? Do you want to practice your pitch? You want to do this and that? And I was like, nah, it's cool. Cause again, I kind of like to wing it. I know my brand, obviously. So you go down to Denver and you're in front of just some producers. You go in, you do a quick little pitch, and they just tell you, hey, there's, no chance you're going to hear from us. Just, cool. It was fun, blah, blah, blah. That's the whole thing they give, the hundreds of people that audition every year. But next thing you know, I get an email, from Shark Tank saying, hey, we want to push you to the next level. We're going to get you in contact with the producer. Then you fill out a bunch of paperwork, then you get through to another producer. Next thing you know, you're taking videos of a pitch and doing all this kind of stuff. And we're starting to think like, oh my God, like, we might actually get, on the show, on the Shark Tank. Like, this is what we were talking about from that, next level, the marketing, the exposure. And then, you get that final call that they're going to fly you out to LA. So, we flew out to LA, in September 2018. And, it's a whole long story about that thing that I'll give you another time, because we don't have too much time here today. But in the end, we get in the tank, we go out there, we pitch the Fat Shack, and we get offers from 4 out of the 5 sharks that are, in the tank at that point. And we end up sealing a deal with Mark Cuban as our investor.
Yeah. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, we are Infinity X Stage and Microphone with a Shark Tank. Mark Cuban funded Tom Armenti, CEO of the Fat Shack. And Tom, I just need to play a little bit more into that space though for a second, because,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, you are literally dealing with some of the highest intellectual property that exists, right? Between Kevin O'Leary and Mark Cuban and all the other sharks that are on there. Obviously that can be an incredibly intimidating environment. But what was it about your brand? Because listen, getting a offer is getting on the show is an unbelievable accomplishment. Getting an offer is an insane accomplishment. Getting 4 offers, it doesn't knock on your front door.
Yeah.
What did you do? Right? What was it about Fat Shack that had Mark Cuban, right? The owner of a basketball team, by the way, and a pretty athletically fit guy, right? What was it about Fat Shack that, had him licking his chops? Pardon the pun.
Yeah, well, honestly, going in, we thought a couple of them were going to drop out right away because, it's unhealthy, and that's obviously not something I'll go for. So we were super impressed that they even, hung around. I'm not going to lie, we knew that we wanted, Mark going into the tank too. He was kind of the shark we had our eye on. But I think for us, the brand itself, it's fun. The name Fat Shack, obviously, you can't really forget it. Our pitch was super fun. Kevin was holding a salad. We were pretending to be some healthy restaurant. And then I come over and I throw it, right in the trash. And we reveal, Fat Shack, and slide a thing around, and you see our fried food, and, I'm saucing a sandwich, on the set. So, it was a fun pitch, obviously. But, when it comes down to it, I think what the Sharks are looking for is, one, that business sense, making sure that people know what they're doing, they have a history, they have a track record. But 2, we know our brand. We came in super confident. We honestly had a really good time in the tank with the Sharks. They're firing questions back and forth. We're joking with them, going and just bantering back and forth with the Sharks. So I think a big thing too, in business in general, looking for an investor, is they need to make sure that they can get along with you. They need to make sure that you have the confidence and you exude, that you're going to be a successful business person, because it doesn't matter what the concept is. If you don't have the right person behind it, it's not going to succeed. So in the end, you're selling yourself more than anything in, those types of investor pitches. And you only have 30 minutes or, 40 minutes to do it. So you really got to make sure that you shine. And in the end, the fact that we knew our numbers, we knew our brand, and we exuded that, confidence, I believe is what, had 4 of the Sharks looking to do a deal with us.
Incredible. And now, when Mark made his offer to you, right, was it the exact offer that you wanted?
So we went in looking for $250,000 for 7.5% of the company. And then, of course, Mr. Wonderful, being who he is, immediately said that he needed 25%. And he gave us a whole spiel about he could just invest in a real estate trust and make his 8%. It's not interesting. Yeah. But of course, we're super respectful. We appreciate the offer, Kevin, yada, yada, yada. And keep working down the line, and the next thing you know, both Robert's in at 17.5% making an offer. And then Mark was honestly thinking about going out because he was on the fence about the health food and the unhealthy. And, I joke around that I think I kind of blacked out. I don't even remember what I said, but I just kind of, spoke directly at Mark, made my pitch for him to stay in. He said, all right, fine, I'll do the same 17.5%. And at that point, you've got 4 sharks on the hook. You know the deal if you've seen the show. If you don't answer them quickly, they start dropping out, and you could lose it all pretty quickly. So that's where kind of that poker mentality of, all right, I got a big hand. What am I going to play? What am I going to do? And you got to make a decision on the fly. So I just mumbled a little something to to Kevin, my partner, who was on set with me, and just went right at Mark directly and said, hey, would you do 15% instead of that 17.5? And if you do, let's lock it up. We got a deal. And that was it. Clapped his hands, said it's done, and we closed it.
Yeah, and 2.5 points is not insulting, right? That's not like going
no.
up to him and saying, "Would you do it for 10%?" He'd be like, "Goodbye," you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But did you know? Did you know that your margins and that your ownership was still going to be really not heavily diluted at all,
Yeah.
even with you 7.5% to 15% is those are some big points right there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
why were you willing to go to that level?
So coming into it also, we had established kind of what our ceiling was, and that was actually exactly at our ceiling. We weren't going to go higher than that.
Oh, so you knew.
So yeah, so we knew coming in, and that's the thing about the Shark Tank too, is you make that deal and you shake hands on set. It then goes to due diligence. Sometimes deals fall through, people back out, people aren't who they say they were, or they try to change the deal afterwards. If you know anything about me, I would do all of this on a handshake. Every deal I ever do, if I say I'm doing something, I'm trying to stick to that deal no matter what. So we knew we would stick to 15%. We're not just going to try to do it for the exposure. So that's just where we knew our limit was, and we weren't going to say yes to something that we knew we didn't want in the end. So we had no remorse whatsoever. We knew that was a good deal, and we were happy to take it.
Folks, we are Infinity X, stage and microphone with human excellence. This is Tom Armenti, the co-founder, CEO of the Fat Shack, and we're talking about his experience on Shark Tank. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, be very, very clear that, it's not, you don't have to go. I mean, not everything is Shark Tank, but when you're going into a business partnership, which is exactly what you did, you are absolutely 100% representative of the brand, right? The people are investing in you, in your vision. I mean, obviously the product has a big role to play in that, but products come and go, I mean, but people are what really, really, the savvy business investor invests into, in my humble opinion. And, folks, replay at weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube. So Tom, so you go through that process, right? Had a lot of fun doing it. That's incredible, right? Mark ends up becoming a investor in the business. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in addition to the fact that you were getting the exposure from Shark Tank in general, right? In addition to the fact that Mark Cuban, probably the most high-profile shark, became your business partner, you were also pretty intentional with the season and with the episode and with what could come from that from a marketing perspective after the fact as well, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And that was the thing too, where once you get out of the tank, you don't really know if you're going to air or not. You hope that you will, obviously, but you're kind of waiting for the producers to let you know, when and which episode you're going to be in. And so we did get a little lucky that we ended up being the season 10 finale, and we ended up actually being like the headliner, like the last, piece of it. And again, a little bit of luck. It also aired about a week before we had a grand opening at a new store in Fort Worth, Texas, which for those of you that, don't know geography, Fort Worth is right next to Dallas, which is, obviously the Dallas Mavericks and Mark's hometown. So, we just were able to really capture a lot of that exposure. There was news channels at the grand opening in Fort Worth. I was there myself for it. And we were able to just kind of capture a lot of that from the marketing and the PR side of things, just to kind of really expand and capture as much eyes as possible after that show.
Unbelievable, folks. Success leaves clues, right? Everything is intentional. Intentionally be excellent, which is exactly what Tom is giving us a world-class education around, is that, and by the way, it started from online poker playing when he was in college, right? And leveraging that entrepreneurial spirit, right? But some of the things that you did at a really, really high level, right? Eliminate the things that you don't do at a high level and outsource them, right? Which is what you did with your partner, Kevin. And then you get the funding from Mark. Everything's intentional with the launch of where it was, et cetera. And what's happened now? Like what has happened as a result of that?
Yeah, so now we have 30 locations operating. We're in 12 or 13 different states right now. So we scattered around, a little bit. We've got 10 here in Colorado, a bunch in Texas, some in Kansas. But then we've kind of got the one-offs in different markets that will eventually, hopefully, open more inside of those markets. But shifting into kind of the franchising side of it a little bit too. Once we aired on the Shark Tank, we got over 3,000 franchise requests, kind of in that first month. from people that were reaching out, looking to open their own, franchise. But, important business piece is that we still didn't want to move away from kind of that grinder mentality, having the right owner inside of the space.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a big thing for us where, again, talking about franchising and kind of watching your back and, buying into the right company where, no joke, I could have went out and sold probably $1 million worth of franchise fees, in those first couple months. But, how many of those people would have been successful? How many of them would have shut down in a year or two? Our goal wasn't just to take that quick money and, keep building it and blowing it up. Our goal, again, is for that sustained long-term growth. So, of those 3,000, we kept whittling them down, and our tactic is almost scare people away, be brutally honest that, hey, this is a restaurant, this is late night. We're till 3, 4 in the morning. Your customers at 2 in the morning, sometimes, have been at the bar for 6 hours leading up to it. It can be a long night. And and it can be grueling. But for us, we want to make sure it's the right person who's going in there and they're going to treat the brand right. And, from a personal side, that it's a good thing for them too, that they're going to, believe me, any entrepreneur doesn't enjoy what they do 1,000%. You wake up some of those mornings and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is crazy. 4 people quit, this happened. You'll have those days always, but finding people that, we believe fit with the brand and, could weather those storms when things get difficult.
So Tom, because I keyed in on the fact that you wanted to, it sounds like your interview process is very, very stringent when somebody is coming in, approaching you and saying, hey, I'd like to open up a store location. Let's kind of shift the focus a little bit to, you started because listen, you built out in different marketplaces that you were where you were not, right? Into different states, different locations. And so what are some of the things that you forewarned your franchisees about obviously, it's still late night, it's all the grind and everything, but what was it that you forewarned them about that have it kind of keyed them in and allowed them to organically grow and become successful and not close up shop in a year?
Yeah, the biggest thing, the late night, obviously, like you said, but the biggest thing is the workload and understanding, what it means to be a business owner. Because the key takeaway is even though you're buying into a franchise where, of course, the franchise has a lot of things figured out, they have systems in place, they have deals in place, all the things that are there to help make you successful. In the end, you're still a business owner, you're still an entrepreneur, buying into a franchise where everything falls back on you as that business owner. So that's really the big message that we try to get across to people is, we're here to support you. I'll be there with you making sandwiches for the first few weeks. I'm a phone call away if, you really need help. We've got plenty of layers of support inside of our organization. But in the end, if those people quit, if something goes wrong, if there's no food, if the providers run out, you're the one driving to go get the supplies. You're the one covering that shift. You're the one canceling those plans for a trip to cover the weekend because your managers quit. For me, owning my original store in Fort Collins that whole time, I always told everybody, I'm ready to go back in there and work 100 hours a week if I need to. I don't care if I'm the CEO. If that's my store, I might have to do that because, in the end, nobody's going to care as much as the owner. So just really trying to push that point that, yes, even though you're buying into a franchise and, for those of you that are familiar with franchising, you have a much higher statistical chance of being successful if you do buy into a franchise. It still all comes down to you as the business owner, as the entrepreneur who decides to open that business.
We are Infinity X. This is Tom Armenti, folks, the co-founder and CEO of the Fat Shack. We're getting a little bit deeper into franchising and replay on weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube, and every other vertical that's out there. But Tom, what's the difference between a good franchise model and a poor franchise model? If people are looking at, if people are interested in buying into, because you mentioned, statistically speaking, you have a much higher probability of success on the franchising space than you do just launching a business independently. But what is the difference between a good model and a bad model, a good contract and a bad contract?
Yeah, in the end, I think it comes down to the support that you're going to get from the franchisor. Of course, the structure that they have in place is super important, making sure that they have mechanisms for training, they have deals in place, ways that you're going to end up saving money by buying into that franchise. But, for me, it's those founder-led, franchisors, ones that still have the people that know the brand and believe in the brand. No knock on private equity, because of course they're really successful and they do a great job in certain arenas. In the restaurant space, I think that's a tough, space to be a private equity company running a franchise, just because, especially at the smaller level, just because having that support and having, people that you can go to that have been there since the beginning, that know what the brand is and truly, believe what that brand is, those are the ones to me that are going to give you the best support. And again, looking out for just that salesmanship, if you're dealing with a franchise sales representative, it is their job to technically sell your franchise, but you should be looking out for someone who's doing that hard sell. Make sure you're asking those questions. Make sure you're looking out for someone who seems like, hey, I just want to get this deal across. I'll say whatever I need to say. Get the paperwork, go through, call other franchisees. That's a really big thing to look out for is, while franchisors aren't necessarily allowed to share financials, P&Ls and things of that nature with potential franchise prospects, you are allowed to go walk into a franchise, talk to that owner. You're allowed to call them. You're allowed to get their profit and loss statement. You're allowed to do whatever due diligence and research that you want to do. So I would say just don't, take what a franchisor is saying for, granted and say that it's, hey, this is guaranteed, because there is nothing guaranteed in business whatsoever. So finding someone that's honest and finding someone that's going to have that support and have your back, if stuff's hitting the fan.
What about from a compensation perspective, right? Financials. What are some of the key things to look at on a franchise model? Things that are intelligent to be spending money on, and things that aren't intelligent to be spending money on.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm obviously most familiar with the restaurant space. So for us, like I said, we can't necessarily give P&Ls to somebody. They have to go to a franchisee to look for them. But in the restaurant world, you're looking at labor and you're looking at your food costs. Those are the two biggest things. So you want to look out for those, kind of see how that operation is running, get multiple franchisees involved, see, hey, why is this person running 5% higher labor? Talk to that person, decide, all right, they're running 5% higher labor because they're in Seattle and minimum wage is $17 versus this person who's in Texas and they're only paying $10, an hour. So using that also when you're determining, what market you're going to be going into. So that's on the P&L side of it. In terms of the startup capital side, that is something that franchisors have to be totally open about. That needs to be listed in the franchise disclosure document, a range of, 200,000 to 800,000 or, 200 to 400 or whatever it may be of what those startup costs are going to be. So, looking in that range and finding a franchise that obviously fits in your budget. Clearly you want to be conservative and imagine the higher, range, but ask those questions about, hey, what leads a store to be only $180,000 to build out versus what leads it to be $400,000 to build out? Again, using the restaurant as an example, if you find that existing infrastructure, you find that hood, you find that grease trap, you find those things, now you're on the low end compared to going into a gray shell and having to build everything out from the bathrooms to the floor to the, air conditioning units and all that kind of stuff. So I ask those questions about why is there this range and what could I do, to be on the lower side of it?
Incredible, folks. You are getting franchise 101, 201, and 301 from Tom Armenti, the CEO and co-founder of the Fat Shack. And Tom, this is a loaded question because I kind of know what your answer is going to be, but I think that this is super relevant, right? So you're leveling upward. You get up to the point you're Mark Cuban is an investor in your company. You're out to 30 different locations. You've built out an incredible franchising model. People are working, people are grinding. And then COVID comes, right? And we go into a global pandemic. I have a client who put in 5 years of absolute sweat equity in reversing the trend of a specific, and I won't say what company it was specifically, but a restaurant franchise in New York City and in the surrounding areas, and had literally just turned the corner, and then COVID came and it was shut down. It was shut down immediately. Didn't have labor, didn't have supply, just went under. And you saw that left and right with businesses in general, but specifically in the restaurant space.
Yep.
Why'd you survive?
Yeah. And that obviously makes me really sad to hear that, because I know, a lot of restaurant concepts didn't make it out or were severely damaged. Yep. We luckily did make it out and made it out honestly stronger, than we were before. For us, I think the key was, I talked about scrappiness, and that theme kind of goes throughout. For us, I think that was one of the key reasons for our success was, how scrappy we are as a franchise, how scrappy we are as, restaurant owners, and how scrappy our franchisees are as well. Again, looking for those grinders that are willing to get in there, and work through it, not people that are doing it as a side job and don't have the time to get into the restaurant. So for us, it was that mentality. And it was also, we tried to grow and keep everything as inexpensive as possible. So again, for the startup costs, keeping those low, but also keeping our overhead low in terms of rent. After Shark Tank aired, we weren't going out and buying the corner lots with $12,000 a month rents and 4,000 square feet and blowing it up. We're still looking for 1,200 to 2,500 square feet. Finding that good space. We do a ton of delivery. We could be a little off, from the A markets in terms of real estate. So we were poised, luckily, to keep everything nimble. And when I talk about delivery, like I said earlier, my original entity was Fat Shack Late Night Delivery.
Sure.
Delivery and Fat Shack have always, been hand in hand. And a few years back, we did convert to all third-party delivery, to make sure we didn't have to staff our own drivers. And so we have partnerships with all of the major suppliers, the major delivery companies. We already had those in place. We had just integrated the year before with our point of sale system, where instead of having to sit there with a tablet and punch in every single order, it's automatically popping up. Everything's integrated for us to maximize that. So when COVID hit, there's that couple of first months where you're a little scared, like what's going to happen? You can't bring people in, but then we quickly realized that now people are staying at home and they can still order
deliver to them, right? Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, so our business went from about 50-50 delivery dine-in to 95% delivery, 5% takeout, but we were just ready to upscale with it. What's that?
But you were ready to do that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we were kind of in that position. And again, being nimble, we could shift quickly, make the adjustments we needed to make, shut down the lobbies, close out the drivers, set up certain ways for people to do online pickup, and we could bring it out to them without them even setting foot inside the store. So, again, while a lot of restaurants were pivoting and trying to figure out delivery or, how do we get this to work? We were already there. So we were able to kind of capture a lot of that market from people that were sitting at home. With nothing else to do but watch Netflix and order Fat Shack.
I love it, folks. We are Infinity X Stage and Microphone. You are listening to Innovation because the preparation for a global pandemic, supply chain essentially shutdown and business shutdown in general was already put in place by Tom and his partner Kevin even prior to this unbelievable crazy world that we operate.
Yeah, and it's still going on too. And while COVID has luckily receded, and obviously it's still serious, but now we're seeing the after effects. Where now it's even crazier at some ways for a business where supply chain, inflation, all these other things that are moving stuff up. So yeah, we're definitely still working through all that stuff, and figuring out ways to maybe change suppliers and find product at a better price and find product in general, because sometimes that's really difficult. But while it's super stressful, all of our franchisees, again, they're grinders. They're in there working their butts off every day, making sure they have product, making sure they can serve those customers. So there's not out of the woods quite yet for all this stuff, but our guys are killing it and still pushing really hard to make sure that they can keep the doors open and keep people fed.
Tom, what's the long-term vision of Fat Shack, and then what's the long-term vision of Tom Armenti?
Yeah. So, for me, I've always said this isn't some, hey, build it up to 100 locations and sell. For me, the Fat Shack truly is long-term. While I love doing other investments and, you and I chat about this stuff too, and, putting our money in other places and making sure that we don't have just the one stream of income. For me, this is my baby. I want to continue through Fat Shack until they kick me off the board. When I'm 90 years old or whatever it is. So when you're in a
wheelchair, then they'll be able to push you around.
Yeah, you can still make sandwiches if you're sitting in a wheelchair. So
you can still use your hands, right?
Exactly. So that's a big thing for me, and for the Fat Shack, it is truly just continue to grow smart. Have my eye on the future. Where we slowed down a little bit recently with some of the labor shortages. With some of the supply chain issues. We have put a slowdown because we want to make sure that people are coming in and they're going to be successful. And we know that with what's going on right now, we make some adjustments, we figure out our stuff. Unfortunately, other restaurants probably won't be able to, and we'll come out of it stronger again, with potentially less competition. But yeah, I'm not so worried if, we don't open 10 locations next year. For me, it's make sure our existing ones are doing well, and then we can grow intelligently and build, a long-term successful brand.
And what about you, Tom? I mean, because you've obviously built up an incredibly successful franchise and incredibly successful business. But what about you personally? Do you have other aspirations outside of Fat Shack that you want to take a look at, things that you're looking to drive?
Well, on the true personal front, my wife and I just had our first child in June. So
Yep.
our son. So that's been quite the exciting ride for these last few months. He's about 11 weeks old right now. So, on top of doing all this during the day, then I'll feed that bottle at 10 p.m., wake up at, 3, do another bottle, wake up again. So, I will say that that's been a lot of fun for me. So, I want to make sure that I'm not strictly focused on, the Fat Shack and the business side, and I can, be there to enjoy my son. And, again, even if that means I'm enjoying it at 3 a.m, obviously, I'm not afraid of the late nights here with the Fat Shack. So, that's an exciting part. But yeah, I'm also, looking for other investments and other, young brands that I could potentially come in and, do a little advising for on the side. I'm talking to a couple companies right now. I've made a couple investments before, and, one other restaurant too, and, some other private companies that, again, not that I have the time to go put in another 50, 60, 70 hours for a company, but, I do have that bandwidth to put a little advising in and, help and guide them from the things that I've seen myself.
Awesome, Tom. We are Infinity X stage and microphone, folks. This has been Tom Armenti, the co-founder, CEO of the Fat Shack. Appeared on Shark Tank, 10th anniversary episode, got countless replays on that, 30 locations across the country, and continue to grow and scale. And, Tom, just from a personal perspective, right? And from the first conversation that you and I had, I knew that we were going to, be boys. I like, there was a lot of personal history right there, talking about Kinchley's over on Franklin.
You can't go wrong with a Jersey pizza, right?
Exactly, dude. Exactly. And but I also knew that I was dealing with somebody who's operating at a different level, right? Somebody who's a big scale critical thinker who is really going to be up to incredible things. And the sky is absolutely the limit for you, brother. And I'm just excited to have my wagon hitched to you, and be on for the ride. But Tom, the last parting question that I have for you is, how can people keep up with what you're up to? And if people are interested in exploring a partnership and or investing in a franchise store location of the Fat Shack, how do they do that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our website's just fatshack.com, fatshack.com. And we've got a form on there, for anyone that's interested in a franchise. You can mention the podcast, so maybe it jumps to the top of the list for us to look at. But, same thing, social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that, at Fat Shack or at fat_shack. You can keep up with what we're doing there. Me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Tom Armenti, CEO of Fat Shack. Or again, Instagram and those places as well. So yeah, all those different channels to kind of keep up with what we're doing at the Fat Shack.
Incredible, Tom. What you're up to at the Fat Shack is sick. It really, and it's not from overeating, by the way. Tom, it's been a pleasure, brother. Having you on here, getting to know you, seeing what you're up to. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really, really excited to continue to co-create with you, men. And thank you for spending some time on the Infinity X stage tonight, buddy. Really.
Yeah, I appreciate having me on. It was fun.
Oh, man, it was a lot of fun. Folks, we are Infinity X. This has been Tom Armenti, CEO of Fat Shack. Replay, weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube, and on the We Are Infinity X app. Tom, thank you again. Folks, thank you for spending the last hour with us. Keep up with Tom. If you're interested in the franchise model, get in touch with Tom. And next week, we'll be back here for another episode of We Are Infinity X. Everybody have a good night. Night, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, buddy.